Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. Greetings.
Y'all are in for a treat today. Today I am joined by a guest co-host, JoVantreis Russell, Dr. Joe Veazey, who was our first guest for our first official podcast on Women Connected in Wisdom. And I am so excited that you are here today, Joe.
So am I. Oh my gosh, what an honor. And to be sitting in for my amazing sister with the amazing Women Connected in Wisdom. I'm so divinely
we are missing and calling our friend Shannon's name today. She is well, for our listeners. She is just taking today to celebrate her sweetheart's birthday. With the events of the world and how Black men are currently in danger in our country, she's like, I'm not taking a moment to miss celebrating his birthday. So we want to give a special shout out. A shout out to Pharaoh and happy birthday. And I hope y'all are having a blast, whatever adventure y'all are on today. So,
yes.
So Joe, we should introduce ourselves.
And let me just say happy birthday, Pharaoh, because he is a really good homie of mine. And it's like really amazing to just see their relationship blossom and just their connection and everything. Like, I just feel honored to be a part of their journey.
You introduced him, right?
Yes.
I forgot that piece of history. I totally forgot that piece of history. That's awesome.
So let me
you get the credit.
Yes, let me just say, I think I'm not going to speak too soon, but I might have a little gifting in that area because this is the second couple in 2 years that I've hooked up and the relationship is blossomed. Like Tasha and Ruben, shout out to them. They're married and they met at one of my events. And so
that's right. They met at your LP release.
Yes.
I love that you called that up. Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. All right, let's do intros so we're official. For those of us that are listening for the first time or live, I am Christine Gautreaux, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author who helps you upgrade yourself in community care.
My name is JoVantreis Russell, aka Dr. Joe Veazey. I am God's sweetheart. I am a wife. I'm a mother, an artist, and a community engagement advocate.
And together we are Women Connected in Wisdom podcast, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness. And we love it when people join us and we have our special guest. Today we have a special co-host for weekly intentional conversations about how to be wise in business, relationships, and wellness. So I am just so delighted to be together today. For those of y'all, for our listeners that don't know, JoVantreis and I have been friends now 3 or 4 years.
I think it's 4 years.
Right? We met at Gwinnett County 101 and a community engagement program. Yes. And became fast friends. And we're like, we need to do some work in the world together. And we created, I had been doing manifesting. I'd been doing mastermind groups for a while. And I was like, Joe, would you do this with me? And she was like, absolutely. So we have a Monday manifesting mastermind that has been going now for over 2 years. 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. 3 years.
You are the one that introduced me to Shannon. So I love how this circle just comes around and around. It is delightful.
I love it. I love it. It's been such a pleasure and honor just even being in the space and sharing love through every season of life. You got to have your girls. And this is a good one. It's quite a powerful tribe, I must say.
Right. Well, and our newest member is your baby Ezra, who is now 6 months old, right?
Yes.
Y'all, let me tell you, every Monday she's on the call and she brings wisdom, and she talks to us, and she lets her voice be heard. She has since she was a teeny tiny baby. I mean, she's only 6 months old now, but still, from the moment she could make sounds, she lets us hear her voice, and it is so delightful.
Yes.
Well, how was your week, my friend? How's it going? You are coming to us from Jackson, Mississippi today, right?
Yes, I am reporting live from Jackson, Mississippi. This is actually my hometown. I was born, raised, and educated, and I actually went to Jackson State University here too. And this was sort of an impromptu trip. You know what I mean? We didn't plan or expect to come under these circumstances, but this is life. This is, this is a part of life. But my grandmother is actually in the hospital. She's sick, and just to be transparent, she is battling with pancreatic cancer right now. It's just confirmed like 2 days ago, actually. And so we are in the process of, it's in stage 1. However, we do want to move quickly. So we're just listening to her, being in tune with what she wants, with her.
Oh, you cut out for a second, Joe.
System for her, caretaker for her. And so this is quite the journey, but
I'm so glad that you could go home and be with her and be in that role. We are losing your audio a little bit, so I'm going to wait till you come back. And while we're waiting for you to come back, I am going to give the definition of spiritual wellness and what we are talking about today. Oh, there you are. I lost you for a minute. So the definition of spiritual wellness that we are talking about today and are going to expand on with our awesome guest is spiritual wellness allows us to be in tune with our spiritual selves. This realm of wellness lets us find meaning in life events and define our individual purpose. It can be defined through various factors, including religious faith, values, ethics, and morals. Regardless of whether you believe in a particular religious faith, there is always something to be learned about how you see yourself in the world. And why is this important? We've talked about it tons on Women Connected in Wisdom podcast, but spiritual wellness not only allows you to seek meaning and purpose in human existence, but it also allows you to appreciate your life experiences for what they are. When you find meaning in your life experiences, you'll be able to develop a harmony with your inner self and outside world. In much simpler terms, it grants you balance. It is the thing that helps you to live a meaningful life. Yay, you made it back.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. That's what happens when you're a road warrior and taking care of family.
Oh, so glad to be back. I don't know what happened, but I'm back.
No worries. I was just given the definition of spiritual wellness that we're playing with today, and before we introduce our guest, and
I love the definition.
You're living it. Being in Jackson, taking care of family, going home. I need to give a shout out to my friends Monique Davis in Jackson and Wendy Schenefeld, two artists and activists. Two of my people from Alternate Roots who I adore. And so anytime I think Jackson, I think JoVantreis, Monique, and Wendy. Like those are my. And I think it's a great place to stop between here and Texas, because that's when I go home. Like it's a great place to stop and say, hey. So yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the reason that you had to go home, but I'm glad you get to be there with her.
I am too. And the definition really resonates with me so deeply because being in a spiritual journey, and it's all about really surrendering what you believe to be right at a certain time. And Lord knows, like I have had to digest this lesson so many times, but when I surrender, it's truly when you really have peace about everything that's going on, because there's so many uncontrollables. But one thing you do have control over is being able to surrender and have peace. And so that's really where I am spiritually. So that definition is like, whoo, oh my gosh. It's like a plate of soul food for me.
Right. I love how they talk about it brings balance. And I know for me, like when I lead with my spiritual practices, when I start my day, outside, and I love, I've said it on the podcast before, and folks that know me, like my favorite place to start the day is in my labyrinth, singing my prayers. And when I start, and I get out of habit sometimes because of weather or schedules or things like that, but it's such a difference when I start my day that way. Like it helps me to be in balance with my overall wellness. So I can't wait to bring on our guest and see what she has to say about this topic. Are you ready, Jo?
I am so ready.
Okay. So Anna is a friend of mine. So what I always say about this when we bring on friends is I always read their official bio so I don't completely muck it up, because, when you've been friends with somebody for years, you can say all kinds of things about them, but you may get it wrong. So I'm going to read her official bio and that way our listeners know the truth. Here we go. Anna Gatmon, PhD, is a visionary educator and spiritual innovator. She comes from an eclectic background that spans the U.S., Israel, Sweden, and France. Her rich life experience includes careers as a fashion model, founder of an alternative elementary school, counselor, speaker, and author. She is the creator of the Expansive Community, a membership for change makers who are committed to creating spiritual material abundance in all areas of their life and in the lives of the people they live, work, and play with. Anna holds a doctorate degree in transformative learning from the California Institute of Integral Studies and lives with her family in Sonoma County, California. And I am so excited to welcome to the podcast today my friend and colleague, Anna Gatmon.
The miracles of technology. I appear, I disappear. Hello.
Right?
Thanks for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here at this time, at this time in the history of the U.S. also, what we're going through and talking about spiritual wellness.
Right? So, Anna, for you, I know you heard the definition, which we've talked about before, comes from an academic setting, which I know you have that in your background, but you expand, pun intended, for your community. What is your definition of spiritual wellness?
So beyond the fact that it's really hard to have one definition, but let me go to the highest level. Spirituality is this being aware and experiencing the sacredness of our life, the sacredness, the divinity and the sacredness of life. So when you talk about meaning and purpose, we're elevating the work we do or the hobbies we have or the volunteer we do to bring meaning to it. We're expanding that and we're making it more sacred. So it's sacredness in everything that we do. And we do live in a sacred, wondrous universe. And when we expand our consciousness to that, we begin to perceive the sacredness. Wow. We get direct flow, energy flow from the universe, vitality. And that's why spiritual wellness is so important, whether it's meaning and purpose in your life, whether it's kindness to other human beings, whatever it is, right? Whether it's meditation, massage, on all the levels, physical, material, spiritual, emotional, social. Whenever you expand into the sacredness, you are in direct flow with more vital energy, and you're in the spiritual realm, in the sacred spiritual realm. So that's my short, long explanation.
When you were saying that, what bubbled up for me is a picture of my friend JoVantreis when she was 9 months pregnant and she was playing the drums, and she put this picture. Was it a picture or was it a video, Jo? Like,
it was a little bit of both. I think I had a picture and a clip.
It was magical, Anna. Like, because you're just meeting Jo today, but she is an incredible drummer, and it's one of her gifts. And when you were saying that definition, and I was thinking about the sacred, that is what popped up to me, Jo. Is that picture of you with Ezra in your belly and you drumming and like sharing your gifts on more levels than one in that moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Wow, that was quite a time in life.
So I do have an exercise at the end, so give me time for it just so people can have that. But I want to share something that happened because we had like a pre-session just to get to know each other before and to see how it works. And I made a self-deprecating comment, which I regretted the whole week, but I learned a really important lesson. And I want to share it because it speaks to spiritual wellness, but to where we are in the world. And I realized how important representation is. Because in that meeting, we were 2 African-American women and 2 European-American women, okay? And I could feel the force was different. It was different than if I'm just with white people. Mm-hmm. And so I made a self-deprecating comment, white women doing some self-care. I regret doing anything self-deprecating. This is not what it's about. But the meaning and the question of what spiritual wellness is changes when there's representation that's different than just my own kind, and whatever my own kind is, whiteness in this conversation. And so my question is, I do have an exercise which I'd like to do, which is an individual self, to tap into spiritual wellness. But I want to ask and have a conversation, what does spiritual wellness look like with what we're going through? It's like, it's a different, I have different answers for myself when I think of this young, innocent man who's gone and seeing his parents. It's devastating. Spiritual wellness looks different around that. So I'm curious to hear what it means like when everybody sits at the table. I mean, that's expansive too, right? Everybody gets a sacred space at the table versus I'm sitting just with white people and we're thinking about self-care. It becomes very personal, but the rest of the world is left out of the conversation.
What comes up for me as you're speaking, thank you for saying that, because that's such a great question to kind of facilitate a conversation around unity, because that's the word that comes up for me is, what does unity look like? And in this country, I can speak, for my experience as a Black woman, I have at times felt unequipped and lacking balance in some ways, and also feeling like I'm playing catch up, so to speak, in not my knowledge, but more so opportunity. And it's not like I'm trying to say, hey, more people have opportunity than I do or things like that, but it's reality. When my tank is not as full as the next person, then they're more likely to receive the opportunity than I am. Or even something as simple as your not reputation, but your experience, your historical experience with dealing with police officers. If I've had a terrible track record with police officers in the treatment that I've received, it would be hard for me to even receive a gift when a police officer is actually being a stand-up human being and a person that's genuinely trying to show me kindness. Yeah. I might miss out on that opportunity because of historically it's not been a good experience. Yeah. So I think about that in terms of being spiritually lacking or having my spiritual tank not be full. And it comes to the point where you have to be even taught how to receive a gift, especially in the divine, in the spiritual. You have to be taught. And personally, I have things where I'm definitely getting that lesson of knowing how to receive. But when you come from an area where hasn't been so freely given spiritual nourishment, it's hard to even recognize. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like even, the law of attraction, I mean, they all talk about it, right? If you're not prepared, if you're not going to see when it's coming your way. And if you're wounded, if you've been abused, you don't see kindness because you're always suspecting, right? And so here it's systemically, you're part of this. And so, it totally makes sense. And I think the thing that's important for me here is the difference between personal spiritual wellness and collective spiritual wellness. That's what I felt in the session that we had. It was so powerful. It was like, wow, this is a different conversation.
Right. Well, and that's why we started this podcast, Anna, because we were having some of these conversations at our Manifesting Monday. And Shannon's like, we need to be talking about this with the whole world.
Yeah.
Because we are a group of diverse women that comes together and we bring our different life experiences, our different we're different generations, different races, different faiths in this group that meet. And we're really lucky in the place that we live. We're in one of the most diverse counties, not only in Georgia, but in the country and in Gwinnett County. And so we really started talking about unity, and we talked about the wisdom that every single one of us brings. And it doesn't, we're from different educational backgrounds. We're from different it's just that piece is fascinating. And I wanted to share with y'all today. I was on a Zoom call with a brand new contact. She was a colleague that was put in touch with me. And she is an incredible activist and artist in Virginia, an African-American woman. And we were having a conversation. And I want to share this because I think it's valuable, especially for our white listeners. And we just were talking about resources. We were talking about ways we could collaborate. We were talking about, and she shared with me that with what's going on in our country right now, she had several white friends reach out to her and say, basically wanting her to teach them, like, how do we deal with this? And she's like, y'all, I'm in pain. I am in physical pain right now. I'm not in a place to do that with you. And so, it's one of the things I know as a white social justice advocate, as white people, we want to talk to other white people and not dip into our friends of color self-care and their wellness in times of crisis, that because it can be detrimental to their wellness. And the other thing that she shared with me towards the end of the call, which was so powerful, was she said to me, Christine, she said, I was so excited to meet with you when I saw the work you did in the world. I could tell we do a lot of the same work. And she said, but in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, it's another white woman who's going to ask to be connected to the Black community. And she said, you didn't ask me for a thing. You just offered resources and said, what can we create together? And she said, I don't think I've ever had a white woman do that before. And it was a powerful moment and a reminder and a call, especially with our sisters of color, for us to be mindful of that. Like, what are we asking of each other? What are we asking of each other especially I think in times of crisis? That's so real. Yeah.
So I want to bring the spiritual is often so devoid of race or ethnicity, right? But it's not devoid of religion. You're Christian or you're Jewish or you're a Muslim, but it's devoid of ethnicity, right? And race. And so a very well-known statement, for example, is unity within diversity, right? And again, it brings us to sacredness. We are different on the diversity level. The richness is the diversity, but the unity comes in the sacredness. That's where the unity is. It's not about being unified, and it's not about being completely different. It's like there's diversity is on the material plane, what we bring, the gifts that we bring, and on the sacred level, on the spiritual level, that's where we share unity. And so I'm saying this because it's important to expand our definition of all these very well-known spiritual statements, okay? If you believe in unity within diversity, well, can you expand your definition of unity and your definition of diversity? If practicing loving kindness is something that you practice, can you expand that beyond and deal with the edge of where it feels like I can go so far. These people, if it's age or it's disability or it's skin color, whatever it is for you, we all have an edge where we're uncomfortable, where we go, oh, well, this is new to me. This is unfamiliar. Stay there and explore there, because in that energy, if you don't do it, there is pent up energy that is depleting you and depleting us as humanity. But if you stay on that edge and you say, can I expand loving kindness to the unfamiliar, to the unknown, to stuff that I was taught as a child in school, from where I come from, wherever you have it, you start to open the energy. When that energy is released, you are going to feel revitalized, regenerated. I mean, you're just going to be, because suddenly you are not in fear, you are in love, and you've expanded your felt sense of sacred loving kindness. So that is a really important action to do today in these times, right?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. Because what I'm thinking about, because you mentioned expression of gifts, and I think about in this country, there are so many gifts that are left being underappreciated because of our value system, and a value system, honestly, that shouldn't exist, because who are we to put value on what gifts matter and what gifts do not matter? And so that feels like, to me, I mean, some folks believe in afterlife, but I believe that is getting closer to heaven on earth, seeing everybody be in their full expression and be received with compassion and grace.
Yeah.
And, even in this season of life that I'm in now, just like our family is coming together, we're recognizing what each one of us brings to the table. And is it easy? No, because all of us have our own conditioning and value system. But bringing it to an example for this country, everybody's had a whole entire different upbringing, even beyond races, even beyond color and ethnicity. We have just had total different backgrounds and upbringing. So our value system comes from how we were raised, but it has to shift and become flexible in order to adapt to this space that you talk about. Because, how else will we have the flexibility to express ourselves to the fullest degree and receive that compassion and grace to do so?
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And Joe, I love the fact that what you're talking about on that edge too is a place of vulnerability. One of my teachers, Brene Brown, talks about vulnerability being the birthplace of creativity and really all that's amazing. And I think about when you say that about it being sacred. So, vulnerability is the birthplace of sacredness. Like you talked about, JoVantreis, about surrender, right? And then I wanted to lift up Anna Rose's comment in Facebook. She said, that is a really good description, Anna. Open to the uncomfortable and unknown.
Yeah. Hey, Anna Rose, I know her.
Right? Welcome. We're so glad you joined us today and are listening live.
Yeah. So can I just share so that people have something, because we're talking and people are enriched by us, but I want people to also have something they can do.
Absolutely.
Because we're depleted and exhausted. And if we have spiritual resources and tools, then we know how to create, a flow. But when we don't, then we're just depleted because it's exhausting.
Right. Yes, please share.
So I created this exercise. You might know a similar kind of exercise, but I created it out of a place where I was told many times, you live in a bubble, because I live in a conscious community, and I have a utopian view of the world. That's what I'm here to show. What's possible? How can we live in this wondrous world, planet, wondrous humanity, ingenuity? I mean, there's so much creativity and beauty and wonder on our planet. And how can we live like this? And I'm often told, you live in a bubble. And I found an answer for it, and I created the exercise. And the answer that I say, I don't live in a bubble. I live in a field that I create for myself. And I expand that field so that when I interact with people, they get a whiff of that field that I create. It's not a closed bubble that's unrealistic or utopian. It is an energy field, is a field of intelligence, of consciousness that I create. And you are welcome to join into the field. And so this is the exercise that I create based on it. And you can pick any quality that you want to do, that you want to work with. Let's say you want to have more inner peace, or you want to experience more joy, or you want to have loving kindness, or anything. It can really be creativity, whatever you want to. And basically you imagine, this bubble, but it's more like it's a translucent kind of a field. And you can make it as, just whatever, just a bit bigger than yourself, however you are comfortable. And it's flowing. So when you move, it moves with you. This field moves with you. And so what you want is to fill that field with, let's say, loving kindness. Okay, let's do that. And so you just imagine yourself experiencing loving kindness. You can always pick a time where you experience loving kindness towards yourself, or when you expressed it, or you saw a child, or you saw a pet, or you saw a movie and you experienced loving kindness. And you just fill this, you imagine you fill yourself with loving kindness. And again, you could do inner peace if that's better for you. And you just fill this, and you can decide what color is it. It's translucent, so it protects you, but it also, anyone who walks into your field suddenly is in the field of loving kindness, or in the field of caring for your brothers and sisters, or inner peace. And you walk around in the world so that when you go to the store, imagine yourself wobbling like this with this field of loving kindness. It's going to change your interactions with people. It's going to change your field, because now it's not like you're being attacked maybe, or violated, or just aggressed by the news. You have this field that's protecting you, that's maybe a meter, or whatever a meter is, like a yard or something around you. And anyone who comes into your field gets to enjoy that and experience that. And that's how we changed the world. One of the ways, by creating a field and inviting people into it, and protecting ourselves with this field, and sharing that with the world. So that's an exercise that's going to fill you with vitality, with tranquility. It will leave the world a bit outside, because you have the field, and you get to design your experience, and you get to design the field that you want to live in and that you want to create. So I hope it's helpful for people. I mean, I didn't do the full meditation. I more explained it, but we don't have time for that, I think so.
I love that, Anna. Thank you. When you were doing that, I had this image. I have this picture. I'll have to go back and find it. It's on Facebook somewhere. But there was it was when the apps first came out, where you could do photo apps and you could put filters over. And I have a picture of me in a bubble. It's this translucent bubble. And so it was easy for me to visualize, because I have a picture of it. And I love that. Like, and I did have to giggle at the wobbling around.
I literally closed my eyes, and I
saw that. Yeah.
I just want to say the color of my bubble is pink, because I envision a heart-shaped bubble. And I mean, as you can see, I'm really into pink now anyway, but
I love it.
Pink has been a color, and even I don't know if I have my stone on now, but I also have a stone that's pink, that symbolizes compassion for self and healing. And there's a couple other definitions of it too, but it's a theme for me. Pink sort of symbolizes loving yourself as well as others. And that bubble, I feel, you mentioned someone entering. I love that, because that means that any space you walk into, you're transforming that space to vibrate in that same wave of love that you're vibrating. I love that. Oh my gosh. Like, that is amazing.
Well, JoVantreis, that's how I know that you walk in the world. Like you have a new visualization with it. But my friend, that's how you walk in the world from the moment I've met you. Right.
Wow.
So we're adding the pink bubble, but you already got this.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, my friend. Well,
I mean, I think that the added piece, as you said, is that anyone who enters that field gets to, so it's not like you're trying to be in here.
Right.
It's like you've expanded it. And that's social activism. That's being an activist for a better world, right?
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Social activism for love.
Right. Right. Yeah. I love this. I think since the last time we met, it was the Golden Rule Day. It was the International Golden Rule Day, about, treat each other as you want to be treated. That is the golden rule that's in every major religion. And I think about that when we talk about this, about spiritual wellness and how do we treat ourselves? How do we treat each other? What kind of a world do we want to create?
It's interesting that's saying, because I know what it means, but actually what happens is what the reality is, because there's so much self-hatred, so much self-hatred and that's what we give our neighbors. Colors have different wavelengths. So what does they say here? So it totally makes sense to me with the colorful bubbles around us. Mine is happy, sunny yellow right now.
That's
okay.
Right? I love that.
Yeah. But it's like love thy neighbor like yourself. And we so don't love ourselves. We so don't love ourselves that how can we love our neighbor?
That's it.
I think you're right on it. And that we got to start with that self-care and self-love and self-healing and expand it. So I even like that with your visualization, right? You're starting with your bubble and you're expanding it. You're bringing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that is powerful.
That's a great description of loving yourself first, because you do. Like, that's perfect, Christine, how you put it. It's your bubble and you're expanding it. And that's a perfect visualization for loving yourself first and expanding that love, because we can't give from an empty cup. We have to give from overflow. So our bubble is literally overflowing to be able to be light, love. You said
great way to describe it. I love that. So well put. Exactly. So the more you make the bubble, the more you're in overflow. Otherwise, you're just trying to have some inner peace right here. And it's really hard because you feel that you're kind of attacked and assaulted all day, right? By the news and people and events. But if you make yourself bigger, and if you believe in this, your aura is bigger anyway. But, it becomes an interconnected world also, right? Rather than a separate world of individuality, which harbors fear because we're all alone in this huge universe and we're scared and we need to defend ourselves and it's us against them and them against us. Whereas if you're a field that's walking around, it's interdependent, it's interconnected. Suddenly we're in a field of I'm not alone, there's love, I'm being loved, I'm being cared for, I care for others, please enter my field. Suddenly we're in a consciousness of love and interconnection and not in a consciousness of fear and separation. And it's a consciousness of fear and separation that creates the violence, right? The racism and the violence. So we can all be activists by creating a field.
When you say those words, Anna, I think about the beloved community from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Because JoVantreis and I live in Atlanta, so we're talking about the beloved community, and it doesn't mean that it's always perfect or always peaceful, but that we are interconnected and that we are loving each other.
Yeah.
And I think that is really needed.
Yeah.
And crucial. Yeah. So,
I mean, the thing of if I can say, I know I don't know if we're supposed to end or not, but I teach a class called The Psychology of Power, Privilege, and Culture. And I also, in my graduate school, when I was 30 years old, 35. That was a long time ago. We did a lot of racial work within the cohort, and so also in the class that I'm facilitating now. And it is so interesting how many times white students feel that at the bottom of it all, they feel worthless. They feel they have nothing to offer. Wow. They don't have community. They don't have soul. They don't have, and men feel it too. So whatever we're talking about, men, women, or we're talking white, black, it's like at the bottom of it all, it's like a feeling like there's nothing there. And so if we keep the power of the status quo going, I can project that out. But if we're going to change a power structure, then I have to face that I feel empty inside because I don't belong to any group. I'm just white Christian. Okay, so Christian maybe, I mean, not me, but I'm saying like white Christians because that's the most dominant or predominant one. But white people don't feel that they're part of a group. So they don't feel that they belong, and they envy the belonging. It's so interesting to see that, how much self-hatred there is, even here. It's hard to be compassionate for it when you're on the receiving end of the abuse and the systemic racism, but it's also so fascinating to see it again and again and again.
But, you know, that goes back to the value system again. Like, you know, your expectations of what you expect, well, your expectations of reward and how you're operating in life. Like if I'm operating in my purpose and my purpose is to raise my child, but the world around me sees that is not value, you know, to raise my child, then I might have insecurities if I'm not all the way secure in that this is my purpose and what I should be doing. So, you know, I guess I'm speaking to, you know, when you do not belong to a group, there's a less chance for you to be affirmed that your purpose matters.
Yeah.
And that is the reason that community is so essential, because you could be walking in an insecure path, you know, operating on your insecurities as opposed to walking in what your purpose is and being secure in that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think about when you talk about the self-hatred, especially for white people right now. I think about Risma Minikin's work, My Grandmother's Hands, and how he talks about racialized trauma is not just in people of color's bodies, it's also in white people's bodies that has been passed down generationally. And until we look at it and do forgiveness work and really look at some of this stuff, that is where some of that roots of self-hatred and self-loathing is because some of us were born with it. And so that's that piece of really looking and owning who we are, what land we're connected to, who are our people. And if we can't be with our people, like then creating the group that we do resonate with and then filling our buckets up. So y'all, this has been a really, really powerful conversation.
Deep, really deep. It transcends. It definitely. Ooh.
Anna, before we let you go, I realized in your bio you didn't give us the name of your book. So I would love for our listeners to know the name of your book and where they can find it.
Okay, so my book is called Living a Spiritual Life in a Material World: 4 Keys to Fulfillment and Balance. And all of my expansive teachings, which I've developed much further and working on my second book since this book, but it's all about spiritual material unity and spiritual material balance. And you can get it on Amazon. That's another conversation for another podcast.
Right? That's a whole nother one.
A whole other conversation. But you can find it on my website, which is annagatmon.com, ANNAGATMON.com. And you'll find my book there. There's a book page. You can get a free bonus of a workbook to accompany when you read the book, when you purchase it. So that's how you do it.
And we'll make sure and we put it in the show notes. But you had said so generously that you wanted to offer our listeners a special gift. If you want to tell our listeners about that, and I will also put a link to that in our show notes.
So that is a 30-minute complimentary, complimentary call where we will talk about where you're at, where you want to be, what you're dealing with, and see if working together is something that is the right thing for you, if I can support you in any way. But the 30 minutes is the 30 minutes, and we get to talk, communicate, and see what can benefit you.
I love that. And will you tell one last thing? I keep saying I'm going to let you go, but one last thing.
I'm enjoying this, so I'm happy to stay.
Will you tell folks about your Mighty Network community?
So my Mighty Networks community is really slow to grow, really, really slow to grow. I have to own that. So, but I'm working on that. So that's the Expansive Community, expansive.community. And that is really a place for us together to practice being in this expansive state in different areas of our life, around our purpose and calling, around manifesting, around relationships, around self-care, and developing our intuition, which is also about expanding into larger field of information. So it's practicing being expansive and getting the guidance needed to live more whole lives as a result of that. And so,
Awesome.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Go ahead, Joe.
Do we have time for one last question? It's kind of okay. So my question is, I'm all about call to actions. So as we wrap up, this was a very deep, powerful conversation. What is, first thing is, what is your favorite daily spiritual practice? Something that you cannot go without doing every day, even if it's not at the same time. And the second part is, what is one actionable item that someone who is maybe very fearful of entering, they're feeling convicted to go ahead and take some action, but they're feeling fearful that they're not equipped. What is something that they can act on immediately to walk into a space that they don't typically walk in, but they know they need to in order to open up their social portal?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. The exercise, this field that you create, is a great tool, because if you're uncomfortable about anything and you create this field with joy or security or comfort, really any word that you want to, and then you expand it a bit to this translucent bubble, you'll walk into the situation from an expanded state, a more spacious state. Your heart is more spacious. You feel more safe. You feel more secure. And you will, as a result, you will have thoughts that are different, more spacious, more loving. You'll have more creative solutions. So the results that you'll get will be different. So this is really expanding into any quality that you want to, is the way to go. And then listen attentively to what the universe tells you. What does it feel like to be in this expansive state? That is the I think a really good exercise. That's a generic one. You get to fill in the quality you want to, and you bring it into any situation. So that's the second one. And what's my favorite practice? There's so many times in the day that I look for the sacredness in things. And so, we might not have time for this, but my iPhone is sacred. And I did a TEDx talk about that, because, it's this material icon, but it has ingenuity, it has efficiency, it has connection, it has community, it has transformation, it has health, it has all these potentials. How can it just be a material icon when it has all these beautiful qualities that can transform our world and transform our life? So what I do is I look, I'll eat my lunch and I'm eating with a fork, and I'll say, there's wisdom in this fork. So I just expand my perspective, because a fork is created in a very specific way that allows you to pick something up. A spoon is enough. So there's wisdom in there. It's not just a material thing. So I look for the sacredness, for the spiritual quality hidden in our material world. And I do it, walking, driving, whatever I do. And that it gives me resource, because if I suddenly see wisdom in my fork or my spoon, which may seem like such a trivial thing, suddenly I'm connected to wisdom in the middle of my day and in the middle of my lunch. So you can always tap into these spiritual resources.
Good.
I love that, Anna. Thank
really
you so much for coming and talking to us today.
It's been such a pleasure and so rich and so wonderful. And I really hope your listeners take in. There's so much for us to expand the definition of spiritual wellness and spiritual well-being.
Right. And I have a feeling we will have you back, especially when Shannon's on, and keep this conversation going, because I think there's more to talk about, and we'll make sure our listeners know how to find you so they can check out all your awesome resources. And we are just so grateful to know you and to be connected to you.
Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the learnings that I got by preparing for this. It's been wonderful, really.
We are so glad. We'll talk
Thanks,
to you.
Joe. It's been a pleasure to meet you, and
Pleasure
wonderful to see you here, Christine, in this context.
Wow, my friend.
Ooh, that is powerful. A lot to unpack.
Right? That's more than a 45-minute conversation. We're going to be talking about this one for a little bit to come.
Oh, I feel like, this is a conversation that honestly, in some form, can be had every day.
Right.
Speaking about the dimensions of wellness, the spiritual part of it, it exists in all of them. So, that's how I feel. So
I agree. What was something that stuck out to you from the conversation?
Oh my goodness. Well, immediately, what sticks out for me is the concept of loving yourself and knowing how important that is in order to expand that. And the example that she used was so sobering. And I feel like it can be sobering for anyone, any person of any ethnicity or background. The example she used when speaking about the college students who felt that they didn't belong to a group, and they totally devalued their contribution as a human being. And that being like a really strong form of self-hate. That's a really intense example, but it's sobering because, if you feel a way about yourself that it's not valued, it's really, really difficult to recognize and identify values in other people. And if a huge percentage of our population thinks that way, oh my gosh.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's scary.
Right.
That has to be a shift.
It also hurts my heart when she's teaching in college, and these are the young ones, I know, and that's, and I know I've had clients that have felt that way and done a lot of work in community where I know it to be true. And it is, people want to be loved and connected, right? And Maslow's hierarchy of law, they want to survive. Yeah. Right. So then we bring in all the dimensions of what's going on in our country, but that love and connection and belonging. Right. And it was really powerful for me. The talking about, and I know we talk about this often in our Monday groups and on the podcast, but the talking about, refilling our buckets and loving ourselves so we can make a difference in the world, and that it's not selfish, that it's vital that we do that. Well, I am conscious of our time. So before we go, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Shealo Glo. Shealo Glo is a company founded by Shannon Mitchell, and it is an organic shea butter company that uses, I can't do it as well as she does because, it's her baby, but y'all, it is the best shea butter. Oil and just some yummy self-care products that I can't say enough good about, because they have kept me hydrated all winter long. And as a gardener, I use it every time I come in from the outside, and my hands have looked better than they've looked in years. So that's my product endorsement. What do you say about Shealo Glo?
Listen, I was just thinking, I use the mist, the lemongrass mist on my face every night after I use a diffuser when I take a bath. So if you're ever looking for, in other words, some items to put in your self-care kit, Shealo Glo items would be the perfect items to include in that kit, because when I tell you that it's a whole regimen at night for me, I take a bath, I use my diffuser oils, I put on my Shealo Glo mist on my face, I give myself a facial massage. Like, I'm telling you, like this, if you're looking for an action step that's even more practical to start your self-care and make a change, start with it.
Right? We can find the sacred in Shealo Glo. Talking about spiritual wellness, we can for sure find the sacred in this, because it is some of our favorites. But we will be back next week live at 5 on Facebook and YouTube. You can find our recordings of all our podcasts on all the major podcasts. We'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcasts and give us a like and a subscribe, or any of the major podcast platforms. And my friend JoVantreis, thank you so much for being here today. And I know that it was big shoes to fill with Shannon being out this week. And we're going to say it like we say it every week. You want to take it? You want to take our out of here? Be well, be wise, and be whole. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, y'all. Thank you.